Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be the high-end makeup tag. I'm so excited to do this. I love doing tag videos. I love watching them. This one was actually created by Jenna Fraze and Kelly Gooch. I'll link their channels and their videos in the description box below. But I know they said they were inspired by the drugstore makeup tag, which was created by Jen Phelps. I think the drugstore makeup tag was going around during the summertime, and I loved watching those videos and hearing everyone's answers. So I hope that a lot of people do this one as well. If you guys have a YouTube channel, I will link or I'll list all of the questions in the description box below. And if not, I would love for you to answer them in the comments so I can hear your answers, just because I'm really curious what you guys think. But I know there's some debate about which brands are considered high-end or luxury or mid-priced. Basically, I just included any brand that you can find at Sephora for today's video. The first question is, if you could only use one high-end brand, what would it be? I kind of went back and forth between two. Originally, I thought of Fenty. I do like a lot of Fenty products. I like their foundation, I like their lip products, and they're always releasing new products that catch my eye. So I definitely thought about that brand, but a lot of their products don't work for me. And I think that when it comes down to like staple products that I love, I would have to go with Urban Decay. Now, Urban Decay's new releases don't always pull me in. I'm not always looking to them for like the newest, trendiest product, but they have a lot of staple products that I love, like their eyeliners, their mascaras, their eyeshadows, their brow products, their lip products. Like, they have so many of my staple favorites that I've used for years that I feel like if I could only pick one high-end brand, I know that I would be able to rely on Urban Decay's staple products. I feel like I have Urban Decay products in all different categories and just different things that work well for me. So I think I'd have to go with them. I'm pretty sure that's the answer Kelly chose as well. And I think that's kind of surprising because when I look at all of the high-end brands, I feel like I want to choose something else, but I just really enjoy a lot of Urban Decay's regular base staple products. Number two, what is the most underrated high-end brand? I didn't know what to choose for this one at first because there are so many brands that get a lot of hype surrounding them just because they are high-end brands. They're a little bit more expensive. They release a lot of products. But I think when I walk into a Sephora, one of the most underrated brands in my opinion is Bite Beauty. Bite Beauty hasn't been around as long as a lot of the other brands, but they make such high quality products. And I know their focus has been lip products in the past. And you know, in 2020, we weren't wearing as many lip products as we normally would, but I like the fact that they're kind of moving in other directions. Their Changemaker foundation is really, really good. They also have a primer, a powder, their new mascara. I still love their lip products. They are my favorite. Their matte lip crayons are amazing. They did pull some of their lip products, like their glosses and their lipsticks, because they are in the process of reformulating. I hope they release them soon because I miss the Amuse Bouche formula. I never really got into their lip gloss formula, but I know a lot of people did enjoy it. But I just feel like as a whole, the brand is a little bit underrated. They tend to be very consistent in terms of quality, and I just like them. Number three, what is the most overrated high-end brand? Okay, you guys, don't get mad at me. This just totally comes down to personal preference, but I think the most overrated high-end brand is Charlotte Tilbury. I said it. I know not everyone agrees with me because people love Charlotte Tilbury, and this is definitely an underrated, or no, what's the word? An unpopular opinion, but I feel like that brand gets so much hype and I just think it's overrated. They do make some really beautiful products and I think their marketing is very gorgeous. The Instagram tutorials pull me in, but a lot of the time when I try a Charlotte Tilbury product, it just doesn't live up to the price tag. It's a very expensive brand and I feel like I can dupe a lot of their products with drugstore products in my collection. So I have to say, I think that they are very, very overrated. I haven't purchased a lot from the brand in the past few years just because I feel like I can spend less and get the same quality. And I just think it gets a lot of hype, honestly. I feel like some of you guys might agree with me. Some people might say Natasha Denona. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that question specifically. Number four, what is your favorite high-end product under $50? There are so many different directions that I could go because I feel like the majority of the high-end products in my collection are under $50. So, I mean, I could go with like foundation or blush or bronzer. I decided to go with an eyeshadow palette. One of my favorite palettes under $50 right now is the Urban Decay Naked Honey. This was actually on sale like the entire holiday season for maybe even less than that, and I just love this palette. When they first released it, I didn't feel drawn to it just because I did have other neutral palettes in my collection, but I did get it and I really enjoy it. I especially love using it during the fall and the winter, and I just think it's such a good option. It's an updated neutral palette, so it's more fun to use. You get some bright pops of gold, and I think it looks amazing on a lot of different skin tones. So I think I have to go with this palette just because it has been one of my current favorites for the past few months. Number 5, what is a hidden gem from the high-end category that no one talks about? So I don't know that no one talks about this product, but I do feel like it's such a good product from a high-end brand that I do recommend checking out, that I think is worth the money. And that would be the Buxom Wanderlust Primer-Infused blushes. My favorite shade is Seychelles, but they have a lot of shades to choose from. This formula looks amazing on the cheeks. It just has like this very natural luminosity to it. They don't look shimmery, they don't look overly glowy, but they look like skin. They're really blendable, they're really easy to work with, they're very buildable, and they have all different shades. So I truly think they have something that will work for all skin tones because they can be really intense and really saturated and gorgeous, or you can share them out if you use a lighter hand. I think that these are some of the best blushes I've tried just overall from drugstore or high-end brands, and they're not overly expensive. They're $23, but because it is a little bit more of a dense formula, I do feel like it will last you a long time, even if it's something that you use every single day. So this is the blush I have to go with. Number 6, what's your favorite high-end foundation? So I actually have two. The Fenty Pro Filt'r Matte Foundation is one of my favorites. I don't wear that one on its own a whole lot these days. I am wearing it today mixed with the ColourPop foundation, and I've had it on for a while because I'm filming a lot today and I just can't get the words out, so I've been sitting here for a few hours. But what I like about this foundation is that it holds up so well on the skin. It is a full coverage matte foundation, so it will stay in place all day long, even if you have super oily skin. And I don't always wear it because it can be a little bit intense for day-to-day wear for me these days, just because my foundation preferences have changed a little bit, but I do enjoy that one when I just want like a truly flawless, long-lasting base. I also really like the Pure 4-in-1 Love Your Selfie foundation. That one is really good in terms of coverage as well. It stays on the skin. I would say that that one is more of like a high medium coverage foundation, but you can build it up and layer it well. They have a really good shade selection. I think they have, I don't even remember, like 80 to 100 shades on their website. So if you're looking for a foundation that's going to work well for you based on your skin tone, your undertone, I definitely recommend checking that one out. I really enjoy it. Number 7, what products do you tend to buy more at the high-end price point? That's really easy for me. Definitely eyeshadow palettes. I do like some affordable eyeshadow palettes and formulas like ColourPop and e.l.f., but when it comes down to it, I'm just always excited to see what the high-end brands are going to release, and I love eyeshadow palettes in general. I feel like it wasn't until the last few years that drugstore brands were really coming out with full eyeshadow palettes that performed really well. So I kind of got into high-end eyeshadow palettes when I just fell in love with makeup, and I have a little bit of an eyeshadow palette obsession, so that's definitely my answer. I buy a lot of them at the high-end price point. That being said, I don't buy a lot of like luxury priced palettes. I feel like $45, $50 is kind of my max, other than maybe the Natasha Denona mid-sized palettes that are $65, but typically I won't go any higher than that just because I feel like that's kind of pushing it for me anyway. So I will buy high-end eyeshadow palettes, but not really like luxury priced eyeshadow palettes. Number 8, what high-end brand do you think is overpriced? Okay, so originally I was thinking that I would go with Natasha Denona for this answer because Natasha Denona does have some expensive palettes. They have palettes on their website that are over $100. They also have, you know, fairly reasonably priced palettes. They have $25 minis, they have the $65 mid-sized palettes, but $100 plus for a palette is just a little bit too much for me. So I do feel like some of their products are overpriced, but their other products seem to be pretty fairly priced. I mean, their cheek palettes are like $55 and you get 4 good-sized cheek products in those. Their lipsticks are pretty much on par with other high-end brand lipsticks. So I do feel like the brand as a whole seems to be pretty fairly priced. Their eyeshadow palettes are more expensive than other brands, but the quality is better than a lot of brands that I've tried. So instead, I think I have to go with Charlotte Tilbury again. Let me just scroll through Sephora's website. Okay, Charlotte Tilbury's pressed powder is $45. Their Matte Revolution lipstick is $34. Their eyeshadow quads are $53. And I mean, that's for a quad. And their palettes are $75. So I know that you spend a good amount of money for the packaging and the brand identity, but I just feel like their prices are so high for the actual quality. I'm not trying to be a Charlotte Tilbury hater because I know a lot of people like the brand and I've tried products that I've enjoyed, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like they tend to be pretty overpriced for what you get. They have some really standout products that might be worth that high-end price point, but some of their products are just easily replicated at the drugstore. So I don't know. I don't even feel like their packaging is always that special. Like sometimes it just feels like regular packaging. So I don't know. I just feel like it's an overpriced, overhyped brand overall. Number 9, what is your favorite high-end limited edition product? I think that I either have to go with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Amrezy highlighter, which is just such a gorgeous color and a really nice formula, or the Anastasia Beverly Hills Jackie Aina eyeshadow palette. That one's actually sitting up in my background right now. I love that palette. It's one of the best eyeshadow palettes I've ever tried. It's so gorgeous and pigmented, but it's also very blendable. The color story is amazing. It's just one of my favorites. So they did bring that one back during the holiday season, and I think it's gone again, but I wish they would just, kind of make it a permanent product because it's so good. I don't feel like I buy a lot of limited edition products, but I actually missed out on the Amrezy highlighter when it was first released, and so many people were talking about it that when they finally brought it back, I decided to grab it. It took me a little while to fall in love with the formula, but now it's one of my favorites. I would love to see like an entire line of these highlighters. I know that their new like pearly icy white highlighter is supposed to be the same formula, but that's just not a shade I would wear very often. At this point, I feel like a lot of highlighters end up looking the same, so I probably don't need a lot of new highlighters, but I just really like this one, and the Jackie Aina palette is gorgeous. The color story is amazing. The formula is a step up from other ABH palettes, and I love that everything just flows and blends so beautifully together. So those are two of my favorites for sure. Number 10, what is the best high-end eyeshadow formula? So I chose 2 brands. I do have to say that Natasha Denona makes one of my favorite high-end eyeshadow formulas. I know a lot of people think the brand is overhyped and overpriced, and I do agree with that to some degree. I think there is so much hype surrounding Natasha Denona palettes that it gets a little bit out of hand, but I do enjoy her palettes. I think the formula is really good. I didn't actually try the brand until like maybe 2 years ago, and as much as I do like the brand, it's not a brand that I feel like I have to buy every single palette from. Like every time they release something, I don't feel like I have to have it. And again, I won't buy like one of the full-sized $129 palettes, but I do really like the formula. Overall, it tends to be very consistent and worth the money. There are so many high-end brands that charge like $50 for a palette, and the quality is just very inconsistent. So I appreciate that Natasha Denona overall tends to be more of a consistent brand. I also have to say that Melt Cosmetics probably makes one of my favorite formulas. Now, Melt tends to be a little bit inconsistent, so their palettes aren't always the exact same, but when you get a good Melt palette, it's so good. Like the Muerte palette is amazing. It has a bunch of really gorgeous, colorful shades in it, but the shadows are so blendable and they're also so intense. I feel like you either get one or the other. You get really intense shadows that are hard to blend or really blendable shadows that you have to build up. In my experience, Melt does both of those aspects really well. They're very intense but also blendable, and they don't look patchy on the eyes. And I just think Melt Cosmetics puts together really pretty color stories, and they're not afraid of color. They're not afraid of a unique color story. So I do like both of those brands. They probably make some of my favorite high-end formulas. Number 11, what is the worst high-end eyeshadow formula? I don't know. I didn't actually write something down for this one because I don't know which brand to go with. I think I'm going to go with Tarte, but the only reason I hesitate is because they have made palettes that I've really liked in the past. They did the Clay Play palette. They also did like that big pink sparkly palette, which I can't think of the name. Oh, the one that they did that was so good was like that all shimmer palette that was part of like their unicorn or mermaid collection. So they have done palettes I've really enjoyed, but overall, I'm not always super impressed by their formula. Their matte shadows tend to be pretty powdery, a little bit lackluster, just a little bit dry. Whenever they market a palette with like Amazonian clay, I feel like I skip over it because it tends to be a little bit more dry for me. I haven't purchased a palette from them in years, so I don't know if they've switched it up, if they're really good, but their color stories as a whole don't really appeal to me. They just haven't created anything that's jumped out at me. So I definitely have to go with Tarte, although like I said, they've done some good palettes. So I don't know. Who do you think makes the worst eyeshadow formula from the high-end brands? I guess other than Tarte, there isn't really a brand that I've like completely written off when it comes to eyeshadow palettes. They just don't really appeal to me, which is why I chose them. Number 12, what high-end brand did you used to love but you aren't crazy about anymore? So I think I actually have two for this answer. I have to go with Too Faced and Smashbox. When I first got into makeup and I was filming YouTube videos, I just loved Too Faced and Smashbox. I also feel like they were really popular even just a few years ago, and they've kind of like fallen under the radar. I mean, Too Faced still releases products, but they tend to be very inconsistent. Their collections don't feel well thought out, and they're just kind of all over the place. So I feel like it makes sense because other brands have just created really high quality products that are actually worth the money. But for Smashbox, I feel like the products are still good quality, but I just don't even know where they are. Like, I haven't even thought about Smashbox in forever. Other than their holiday collection, like, I can't think of the last time I actually talked about them on my channel. And I used to love the brand. I love their primer water and their primerizer, but I think those might be like the only two Smashbox products in my collection. Remember when they were doing really good collections like the Petal Metal collection, the collaboration with Vlada? That one was amazing. They also did that really gorgeous, like crystallized collection. I don't know, I just haven't seen anything from them in a while. So I used to love those brands. They were two of my favorites. I don't really use a lot of their products anymore. Number 13, what high-end product did you not expect to like but totally wowed you? The Urban Decay Lash Freak. I did not expect to like that product at all. And when I initially saw the release photos, I thought it was a weird wand. The actual lashes on the models didn't really look appealing. And then I got a deluxe size sample when I placed an Ulta order, and I just couldn't believe how much I liked it. I actually ended up repurchasing the mini version. This is a very high maintenance mascara, so it is a very wet formula. The wand is a little bit difficult to use, but it makes your lashes look so long and voluminous and dramatic, and I have the worst natural lashes, so the fact that it can transform my lashes is just amazing. If I never got this as like a gift with purchase when I placed that Ulta order, I probably never would have tried this, but I love it. It's like my favorite high-end mascara. It has been for the past few months. So this one definitely blew me away. I was not expecting to like it at all, let alone love it. The last question, number 14, what is your favorite high-end eyeshadow palette right now? My favorite palette for like the past maybe 6 months, whenever they released this, has been the Natasha Denona Bronze Palette. I ranked all of my eyeshadow palettes in 2020, and this was number 1. I just have so much fun using this. I think it is such a gorgeous color story. It is a warm-toned palette. It doesn't necessarily look like anything super special, but every single time I use this, I love how my makeup looks. In 2020, I kind of fell in love with like neutral eyeshadow again, and I just found myself reaching for this one every single time I wore makeup. I didn't want to use any other palette in my collection. I would have to force myself to like put this away and reach for other palettes, but I just enjoy it. It's probably one of like my top 3 high-end eyeshadow palettes. It might be my number 1. Either way, it's definitely my favorite high-end eyeshadow palette right now. It doesn't look like anything super special, but I think that's why I like it so much, because when I reach for it, I'm not going to get like a super colorful or unique or, you know, crazy eyeshadow look, which sometimes I love to do those. I'm just going to get something a little bit more predictable, but it always looks good. So that's why I do enjoy it so much. Okay, guys, that is the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear your answers. So if you guys have a YouTube channel, let me know if you filmed this video. If not, feel free to share them in the comments below. I read all of my comments. I love hearing from you guys, and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye.